Hey viewers, you've probably heard the news about Fallout 4's next-gen update by now, which gives me the excuse to move over to New Vegas for the next few weeks. But before then, I'll review two mods I promised to do months ago, Machineguns Rebirth and Miniguns Rebirth. My conclusion about both of them is very positive. Vanilla Fallout 4 doesn't feature nearly enough heavy weapons, seriously, there's only 9. And most of the modding community is focused on realistic tactical guns, so it's nice to see some ridiculously massive handheld cannons for a change. Both mods' weapons are balanced enough, perhaps a little overpowered, but not too bad. They look, and especially sound, excellent, and their mostly vanilla animations are adequate. Each weapon has a good number of attachments, and there's consistency between them all. For example, you can put Institute skins on every single weapon if you're doing an Institute playthrough. I definitely have a few problems with these mods, but they're relatively minor issues in the grand scheme of things. And this mod gets a lot of the little stuff right too. Example, many modded heavy weapons tend to unfortunately be governed by the Commando or Rifleman perk, which can be confusing and annoying. Thankfully, every weapon in these two mods is a true heavy weapon, with damage and accuracy being determined by the Heavy Gunner perk. I can easily recommend both of these mods, although for Xbox users I'd be worried about the file size. These mods take up a lot of space for just 7 weapons, and that's with downscaled textures and missing skins. On the bright side, on PC, both mods come in ESLified format, so they don't take up a precious plugin slot, and assets are packed into BA2 archives, which is great. So, without further delay, let's take a look at these two mods in more detail, starting with Machineguns Rebirth. Machineguns Rebirth adds 4 brand spanking new machine guns to Fallout 4. The West-Tech AGL-40, the WH Mark 19, the WH Mark 22, and a Flack Gun. There's no uniques for any of them, and to start with, there's no leveled list integration either. You have to enable LL integration using a holotape, which is added to your inventory when you open the game with this mod loaded, and if need be, can also be crafted at a chemistry station. I really don't like having to enable integration using a holotape, since it's something you have to remember to do every time when starting a new game. At least it's less annoying than mods that pop up with injection options, so there's that. Anyhow, once you choose to enable LL integration, you can find these 4 machine guns on vendors, gunners, super mutants, minutemen, and raider bosses. At early levels, you'll mostly find the Mark 19 on enemies, and you won't see the Mark 22, Flack Gun, or AGL-40 until levels 35, 55, and 75 respectively. Long before you see them on enemies, you'll be able to purchase them from vendors, however. Aside from leveled lists, there are plenty of pre-placed spawns throughout the Commonwealth. You can find machine guns at the Federal Surveillance Center, Listening Post Bravo, Gunners Plaza, and many other locations. If you enable an option in the holotape, you can add hostile Mark 19 and Mark 22 turrets to leveled lists, starting at level 1 and 15 respectively. I would honestly recommend not adding them, since they are much harder than regular turrets, and I find their hitboxes a bit wonky. It feels like you have to aim at the base of the tripod to have any chance at hitting them. I'm glad this feature is optional. Also, using the holotape, you can just cheat the 4 machine guns in if you want. Another cool little feature is building these 4 machine guns as automated turrets to defend your workshop areas. Not much to say about this, it seems to work well. On to the weapons. The AGL-40 fires a new ammo type, 40mm grenades. If you're running caliber complex or munitions, there are patches available you should grab so you don't end up with duplicated ammo types. Anyways, the AGL-40 is a fun weapon to use. Without it, Fallout 4 is missing any analog to Fallout New Vegas' grenade machine gun. It uses minigun animations in first person, but the animations have been slightly edited to fit the weapon better in third person. You'd be hard-pressed to notice, though. In Power Armor, there's been no edit to third-person animations, but they fit extremely well, so it doesn't matter. For attachments, the AGL-40 has 4 receivers, 2 barrels, 3 sights, a bayonet, I forgot that while recording, fuck. 11 faction-themed skins, and every single weapon in these two mods has the same skins, which is awesome. Damage cheats, and 5 ammo types. The damage cheats only seem to work on the gun's pitifully low base damage instead of its extra explosion damage, and the same is true for receivers as well. Despite the gun's damage not benefiting much from attachments, it does benefit from both the Heavy Gunner and Demolition Expert perks, allowing you to double dip by taking both perks and quadrupling its damage. It's the exact same way the Fat Man and Missile Launcher work in vanilla. This makes the AGL-40 an extremely powerful weapon, able to annihilate pretty much anything, although there is some risk of self-damage when using it, especially against melee enemies or in confined spaces. Another problem is that it often sends enemies flying, which can make it more difficult to loot their corpses, but that's a pretty good problem to have as far as problems go. Surprisingly, in survival mode, 40mm grenades are not heavy at all, but the AGL-40 itself is, coming in at 23 pounds minimum. In real life, 40mm grenades weigh half a pound each, but for whatever reason they're 50 times lighter in this mod. I think this gun would be way more balanced if you had to worry about ammo weight, but whatever. The next weapon is the Mark 19 machine gun, which also uses minigun animations in first person with slightly edited minigun animations in third person. This time around, the power armor animations have a tiny bit of clipping and the drum floats slightly away from the hand, but it's nothing compared to the typical power armor issues you can find in other mods, so I don't mind. The firing sound on this gun is absolutely wonderful, and honestly I could say that about every weapon in the Rebirth series. For attachments, the Mark 19 has 8 receivers, 6 barrels, 3 sights, 4 muzzle devices, damage cheats, the expected 11 faction skins, a ballistic shield, and 5 ammo types. I suspect most people doing an actual playthrough will go for the high explosive rounds as soon as they meet the perk requirements, since they are awesome, and a bit of splash damage makes up for this machine gun's high spread, as well as its unique and somewhat difficult to manage recoil pattern, which moves up and down and side to side. You have a choice of going 5.56 or 308 with this gun, but its 308 receivers only do slightly more damage than 5.56, so I don't think the extra weight and cost of 308 ammo is really worth it. The Mark 19 is slightly lighter than the AGL-40 at 21 pounds, but that's still a decent chunk of carry weight. So this is a pretty interesting weapon with a lot of upsides and downsides. Moving on, we've got the Mark 22, the Mark 19's bigger brother, which uses the same minigun animations as the Mark 19, but with different animation edits in third person to better fit the model. The Mark 22 has the exact same count of attachments as the Mark 19, 8 receivers, 6 barrels, 3 sights, 4 muzzle devices, damage cheats, the skins, ballistic shield, and 5 ammo types. Again, most people are going to spring for the high explosive rounds as soon as possible, which is for the best since the Mark 22's spread and recoil are far worse than the Mark 19. It also fires much slower, but correspondingly has far better damage. Still, it's likely you'll have a higher effective DPS with the Mark 19. This is also the heaviest weapon in Machineguns Rebirth, weighing 36 pounds at the very lightest, so you'd better invest a little into strength if you want to use it. With the Mark 19, you had to choose between 5.56 and 308, and with the Mark 22, you choose between 5mm and 50 cal. Once more, the damage boost from the higher caliber round isn't massive, so unless you could find a huge surplus of 50 caliber ammo, I wouldn't bother with the higher end receivers. Finally, we have the Flack Gun, a massive beast of a weapon. It uses Gatling laser animations, this time completely unedited, and they fit decently well with only a little bit of clipping. The Flack Gun has a small number of attachments, 3 receivers, 3 barrels, 3 sights, 3 muzzle devices, the skins, a ballistic shield, damage cheats, and 4 ammo types. Like the AGL-40, this gun uses its own ammo type, the 20mm round, but just like 40mm rounds, these are surprisingly light. Damage is really high on this weapon, but it fires very slowly. It's still automatic, but instinctively you'll want to fire 1 round at a time, which can be tough since if you tap the mouse, it will recoil as if it's firing, but it won't actually fire. You have to hold the mouse down for a little before it really shoots. I think this oddity is a consequence of using Gatling laser animations on a very slow-firing weapon with no spin-up time. You can get away with using the other machine guns with no sights, but irons or a reflex sight are pretty much essential for the Flack Gun. The low rate of fire and high recoil makes missing a shot very punishing. At a glance, you might assume this weapon is super powerful, but arguably it's the most difficult to use in the machine guns pack, at least until you get explosive rounds, that is. Even then, the AGL-40 still beats it. Oh, I forgot to mention, you can craft both 40mm and 20mm grenades at a chemistry station, and find them in ammo boxes and on vendors too, so besides being really light, they're also easy to get your hands on. Overall, I really like Machineguns Rebirth. Most of my complaints would be nullified by using it with an ammo overhaul. If you're looking for heavy weapon mods, there aren't many other choices, and you're not going wrong by picking this one. Let's move on to Miniguns Rebirth, which adds 3 classic miniguns to Fallout 4, the Personal Minigun, Avenger Minigun, and Vindicator Minigun. Like Machineguns Rebirth, there's no uniques, and you have to deliberately enable leveled list injection through a holotape. When you do, you'll find these miniguns on vendors, raider bosses, Minutemen, Brotherhood soldiers, and super mutants. The Personal Minigun can be found from level 1, the Avenger starts spawning at level 10, and the Vindicator at level 20. There aren't as many pre-placed spawns as Machineguns Rebirth, but there are a few. You can find a personal minigun and a bunch of ammo for it right on the roof of Concord Museum, in fact. You can also, of course, spawn the new miniguns in using the holotape too, just like Machineguns Rebirth. There's no new turrets, hostile or friendly, in this mod, but I don't consider that much of a loss, really. Let's just get to the weapons themselves. They all use minigun animations with minor edits in third person to make them look nicer. I didn't discover any animation issues, and there's no issues with the modeling or texture work either, to my knowledge. The first weapon you're likely to find is the personal minigun, which feels like an apology letter for how worthless the vanilla minigun is. It still has the low damage of the vanilla minigun, but now you can remove all spin-up time and increase its ammo capacity. Armor-piercing rounds can compensate for its low base damage, and it weighs way less than the minigun too. It's strangely chambered in a new ammo type, the 5mm rifle round. I don't know why it doesn't just use regular 5mm rounds. Oddly, you can craft 5mm rifle rounds out of 5mm rounds at a chemistry lab, getting double the ammunition. Was this new ammo type really added because 5mm rounds weren't common enough? I think between vendors, the Scrounger perk, and making sure to pick up enemy miniguns for their ammo, there's plenty of 5mm to go around, even if you don't use the Wasteland Workshop ammo factory. Well, if you find this new ammo type unnecessary, you can get rid of it by using patches which are available for munitions, armament, and caliber complex. For attachments, the personal minigun has 2 motors, the advanced one removing its spin-up time, 8 barrels, an expanded drum that doubles the capacity from 300 to 600, 6 sights, some of which have shields that improve your DR, damage cheats, 6 ammo types, and the same 11 faction skins as every other weapon we've looked at. This is a good early game weapon to use instead of the vanilla minigun, and it has enough upgradability to remain viable later on, especially if you can get depleted uranium ammo, which basically nullifies enemy armor. At some point, however, once you get a reliable supply of 5.56 ammo, you might want to switch to the Avenger minigun. The Avenger minigun has 2 motors, again, the advanced one removes the need to spin up, 16 barrels, an expansion drum, 6 sights, damage cheats, 6 ammo types, and faction skins. Compared to the personal minigun, it's slightly heavier and somewhat harder to keep on target, but to deal with enemies with a lot of damage resistance in the mid-game, it'll be an essential upgrade for most characters until they can get depleted uranium ammo on the personal minigun. It also has greater range and damage than the personal minigun, but then again, so does the Vindicator minigun, and the Avenger's position in the middle of the stack makes it hard to justify using versus its bigger or smaller relatives. If we look at the Vindicator minigun against the Avenger, it's not that much heavier, but it fires faster and does more damage while having similar range and accuracy, and the same magazine capacity. It's chambered in 308, so I can imagine there might be some difficulty finding enough ammo to keep the Vindicator fed, unless you're using ammo factories. That might be the only reason to use the Avenger over it, since they both have near identical attachments. The Vindicator also has 2 motors, advanced one removing its spin-up, 16 barrels, an expansion drum, 6 sights, damage cheats, 6 ammo types, and the faction skins. It simply feels like a straight upgrade over the Avenger. Of course, no matter which of these miniguns you end up maining, you'll have a fun time, guaranteed. Ultimately, I'm a big fan of Miniguns Rebirth. If you're going to use Machineguns Rebirth, you may as well use it too. I can't find anything to dislike about this mod. It's actually more balanced than Machineguns Rebirth. I absolutely love using these miniguns with high fire rate barrels. They sound like an A10 Thunderbolt, which is fucking awesome. I hope you enjoyed my quick look at these 2 mods. Maybe they'll inspire you to do a heavy weapons playthrough someday. Next time, I'll be seeing you in New Vegas, but until then, toodles!